Thief, 1981 film directed by Michael Mann, starring James Caan. It's a crime story about Frank, a professional thief and safecracker. When we meet him, he's a middle aged man slowly getting ready to get out of this dangerous business and go legit, in large part due to his desire to get married again and have kids. Before that happens, though, he is offered a chance to work on a heist for a newly met mob boss, Leo. Initially reluctant because Frank prefers to work for himself, having no obligations to anyone, not being tied up to anyone, he finally does agree to do one last job and set himself up for life. We get to observe him meticulously preparing the heist and, on the other hand, trying to act like a regular guy in his family life. And eventually, those two sides will have to clash. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's no coincidence. The movie is very similar to Heat, also directed by Mann more than a decade later. It has a similar plot, similar structure, explores much of the same themes, family versus crime, and also has Mann devoting a lot of attention to detail in regards to the technicalities. In the case of Thief, he had a real life former thief as a technical advisor, and as a result, all of the tools and techniques that are used on screen to perform the job are 100% real. The movie goes to great lengths to stay realistic, and I think it deserves to be commended for it. However, I think that while it is very much a protoplast for Heat, I felt that it is a weaker film in pretty much every respect. Its core ideas are underdeveloped in comparison to the later movie. It's not as engaging. The story is more flawed, and all of the technically correct break-in techniques don't necessarily make for engaging cinema. I found some of the sequences to go on for quite a long time and get close to being boring. I didn't like the ending too much. I think it leaves things unsatisfyingly unresolved. I definitely found it difficult to sympathize with Frank, as he's rather an unlikable, emotionally distant protagonist, but okay, to a degree that's somewhat intended. His relationship with his wife, though, in particular the beginning of that relationship, is almost unbelievable as it comes close to actual abuse and him forcing her to be with him, to which she then very quickly happily agrees. But I guess different era of filmmaking, different sensibilities, which it's also a big part of why I don't think the film can be enjoyed today by most. But weirdly enough, why it could also be appreciated by some. And what I mean is that the movie is incredibly dated in many respects, and a lot of the scenes which made sense back in the early 80s will look plain weird today. But on the other hand, the fact that the film is skirting that line between the sensibilities of two colliding decades in filmmaking, the dark jaded cinema of the 1970s and the machismo of the 1980s, this can make it interesting as a sort of museum piece to see what filmmaking was like back then, what changed, what evolved, what wouldn't be done nowadays. So if you're a movie buff and care for that historical value, then you may find something for yourself in Thief. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't bother with it, especially since Heat exists and is superior in every way.